Tonight, Donald Trump sparks allegations of foul play after intervening with FIFA to suspend a red card for one of Team USA's star players. The integrity of the game is at stake, says Europe's footballing authority, but the president doubles down, calling into question the referee who sent off Balogun.
I didn't think it was a foul. And, you know, again, I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. This referee, who is a little bit suspect.
FIFA's boss has denied any wrongdoing, but has his Peace Prize winner set a precedent that could fatally undermine trust in the World Cup? I'll speak to the European Union's Commissioner for Sport. Also tonight, millions take to the streets of Tehran for the funeral of former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We'll be live inside Iran, hearing voices calling for revenge against Donald Trump. We speak to the son of a Palestinian doctor detained without charge by the Israeli authorities for over 550 days, as fears for his health grow.
The helplessness, the oppression, the heartbreak, watching my father, the dearest person to me, a doctor who dedicated his life to saving children, now being killed before my eyes.
And we hear from the families worst affected by an apparent crackdown on Christianity taking place in China. All that and more coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. Donald Trump has spent much of his presidency reshaping America's approach to war, diplomacy and global alliances. Today, though, it was football that drew his attention. In an extraordinary intervention, the President of the United States publicly questioned a refereeing decision at the World Cup, and within hours, the suspension of Team USA's star striker Balogun was overturned. Tonight, that sequence of events has sparked an international row over sporting integrity, political influence, and whether the world's biggest game can really remain separate from the world's most powerful politicians. Speaking in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump revealed he had spoken to FIFA President Gianni Infantino about Balogun, who was sent off in the United States' last match, a decision that would have ruled him out of tonight's knockout tie against Belgium. Hours later, the red card was suspended pending further review. Mr. Trump insisted the challenge was not a foul and suggested the referee was a little bit suspect. FIFA insists the disciplinary process was conducted independently. But Mr. Trump's intervention has prompted an unusual broad backlash. UEFA warned that political pressure must never cast doubt on the integrity of officiating. Even Sepp Blatter, the former FIFA president, said football must never become a playground for political power. We'll be getting reaction to this growing controversy in a moment, but let's have a listen to more of what Trump said a little earlier.
I asked for a review because I didn't think it was a foul. And, you know, again, I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other and got entangled. That was not a guy punching somebody in the face or anything. And you want to see a game with your best players. I think they made a really brilliant decision. I think the referee's call was horrible. And nobody talks about that. They talk about the red card like it's fine. Nobody talks. The referee's decision to red card. I didn't know what the hell a red card was. When I found out, I said, you got to be kidding. This guy just hands up, okay, your best player is not going to play next week or in the next game. I said, wow, that's a lot of power. That's terrible. But then I looked at his past, and it wasn't so great.
Well, that was Trump earlier. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has more. Have a listen.
This isn't surprising that Donald Trump has wanted to claim the credit to talk up his role in getting Florian Balogun's red card suspension frozen so he's eligible to play for the US against Belgium. But this leaves the FIFA president Gianni Infantino politically exposed because there are rules in world football from within FIFA that ban government interference in footballing decisions. And it was Infantino who received a call from Trump asking for this injustice, as he called it, to be overturned, that direct lobbying from the White House on a footballing matter. And perhaps we might have expected more meddling in this World Cup so far by Trump, but actually he's been surprisingly quiet until now, and it has created huge problems for Infantino. We've got Belgium complaining about Balogun suddenly becoming eligible, and from European football's governing body, they're concerned now that a precedent has been set because an automatic one-match ban should have been served by Balogun after he was sent off in the last US game in the round of 32 victory against Bosnia-Herzegovina for a tackle, having scored earlier in that match. And UEFA said that they expressed disbelief at such an unprecedented, incomprehensible and unjustifiable decision. And they talk about the integrity and credibility of football being at stake. Now, we have heard from Infantino. He's taken a day defending himself. What he hasn't done is said why this red card suspension was lifted, unlike other players who've been sent off at this World Cup. He did confirm he'd received a call from Donald Trump. He says he receives calls regularly from world leaders. And in the statement, he said this: "During our conversation, I explained that there was an ongoing legal process involving FIFA's independent judicial bodies and that the case would be decided in due course by the competent bodies. That is how FIFA's system works, and it is a principle that I will always uphold." Well, we'll see what the consequence of that is. What do other FAs say? Certainly the sense from across football is there's no impending ethics investigation, for example, into Infantino. It seems that close alliance between Infantino and Trump has delivered a result the US wanted to get their striker back in the team. The question is, what sort of a precedent has this set? And has Infantino exposed himself so politically that there will be consequences?
That was Rob Harris reporting there. Well, the relationship between Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump is something that really does transcend the formal roles that they have. Here's what the FIFA president told me when I spoke to him earlier this year in a very rare sit-down interview. It was before the World Cup, shortly after Donald Trump was awarded the FIFA Peace Prize. Have a listen.
I'm fortunate to have really an excellent, a great relationship with President Trump. We met during his first mandate when the United States, Canada and Mexico were bidding to host the World Cup. We actually met for the first time after the announcement, after the decision for them to host. And I found him from the outset very engaging, very motivated to help FIFA, to help the game grow, and and we established this friendship, this relationship.
Do you speak to President Trump every day? How often do you?
No. I don't speak to him every day. No. Every now and then.
I mean, clearly, there is a relationship, and you therefore gave him a peace prize. Why did you feel he was worthy of that peace prize? Why did you think that it was important to give it to him?
And this is our slogan, our motto, FIFA, is football unites the world. So the fact that we unite everyone goes hand in hand with peace. So whatever we can do to help peace in the world, we would be doing it. And for this reason, for some time we were thinking about, we should do something to reward people who do something. And when this whole situation recently, also with Gaza last year, happened, I mean, how many 60,000 people were killed, died in Gaza, and then it stopped. It did stop. Well, we have to stand for peace. We have to support everyone who does something for peace.
There is no doubt that he played an instrumental role when it came to Gaza and the ceasefire there. But of course, the criticism is around Venezuela, for example, plucking Maduro from the capital, taking him to New York, the threats against Greenland. There are accusations that President Trump has also been a destabilizing force. Yes,
but if we speak about the Peace Prize, and And this FIFA Peace Prize actually will be an annual one. So every year we will award a person who engages for peace. If we speak about, what is the main responsibility of a leader of a country? I think it must be to protect first his country and then the people generally.
That was Gianni Infantino speaking to me earlier this year. Let's go straight to Washington and speak with our international correspondent, Alex Rossier. Alex, we just played a clip there. This relationship has been quite controversial. It's probably from Gianni Infantino's point of view, it's not something he wanted in the middle of this World Cup with just a week and a half to go till it's over. But it has put a real spotlight on the nature of this relationship.
Yeah, it has. And it's interesting, Yalda, because he came out, a few hours ago with a response to some of the criticism about this decision. He acknowledged that this phone call did happen with Donald Trump. The two men chatted, they talked through the red card. But he says that that is all it was. The actual ruling itself, that was conducted by an independent committee within FIFA, which is autonomous and it's completely independent. And he is essentially suggesting it's got nothing to do with the conversation he had with Donald Trump. But the problem is not really just one of optics. It's also the fact that rules don't seem to be being applied to every other nation and every other player. I mean, if you look back through the World Cup, I think something like 189 red cards since the beginning of the World Cup have been given out to players. You've got to go all the way back to 1962 to find even in a comparison with this of a red card being overturned. So it is extraordinarily unusual for this to happen, which is why many people are saying that, this effectively looks corrupt. It's, you have an extraordinarily powerful man picking up the phone, intervening when things aren't going America's way, that their top striker can't play in a key game. This is the biggest game that the United States has ever really had on the international stage. And he's picked up the phone and got this striker reinstated so he can play again. Now, he may have won the appeal, Yalda, but I think universally across football is the loser in all of this. And I think there are many people here tonight, questioning and saying that really this does undermine the credibility of this World Cup.
Alex, thank you, as always, for that update. Well, earlier I spoke to Glenn McAuliffe, the European Union's Commissioner for Sport. Have a listen.
I speak as someone who is deeply passionate about the sport and about the game. And that I've been following this discussion practically all morning around the controversy that's been created with FIFA's decision to suspend the one-match ban for this US men's national team player. And I think this is the wrong decision. It raises so many questions from a sporting perspective, from a fairness perspective, and it creates an unnecessary controversy. Then if I speak also as commissioner, I fundamentally believe that politicians and politics should be kept separate from match rules, from decisions taken by referees, and from the way that sport is governed more broadly. And I think that fundamentally sport should be allowed to keep its independence when it comes to such decisions, and no politician should not cross any politician's mind to put pressure on sporting federations, on sporting bodies when it comes to these decisions. I think that we should continuously advocate, continuously champion the independence of the sporting movement in taking these decisions. There was one interview that I've seen over the last few hours that I think sums this up perfectly, why this is so dangerous. It was the interview with the England manager, with Thomas Tuchel. And I think he said something along the lines that if this is something that we're going to start accepting going forward, the real question is, where does this end? Because today we're discussing a red card. We're discussing a ban. Tomorrow we could be discussing which referee officiates which match. We could be discussing, performance-enhancing drugs and pressure made by politicians on these issues, and I don't think that should be the case.
So you feel that this sets quite a dangerous precedence, that it's beyond a controversy, and it's a moment that could change the direction that these major sports take when we see politicians intervening directly with the decision, that is made by a referee and then by a disciplinary body, that it now sets something far more dangerous in motion.
Yeah, I think this creates an unnecessary risk. It puts questions on the independence of the sporting movement. Puts pressure on the independence of the sporting movement. And there's a risk that this creates a race to the bottom. It creates a downward spiral in terms of pressure on the sporting movement. And I, again, refer to what Thomas Tuchel said earlier today, is where will this end?
Gianni Infantino, as you know, has put out a statement defending his position. He says that he fields calls from world leaders, from governments all of the time, that this is not unusual, that different requests are made, but it's not something that he then personally intervenes in, that there is a body that reviews this and that body is independent. But this idea that the US president or other leaders would call him and have a conversation with him about such issues is not unusual. Just your reaction to that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm not here to speak for Gianni Infantino. What I would say is that essentially I don't see anything wrong between dialogue between political leaders and the sporting movement. Indeed, that there are a lot of issues on which we cooperate, on which a lot of good work is being done, whether it's on sports and sports providing role models for young people, whether it's on collaboration with sporting organization, on educational initiatives. And these are avenues on which we need to cooperate much further with the sporting movement, including with FIFA, which is one of the largest stakeholders in sports globally. So I don't see anything wrong with dialogue between politicians and the sporting movement. What I'm saying is that there should not be any interference on match decisions, on the way a referee decides on a particular case, and we should not put such pressure on sporting bodies when it comes to these issues.
How do you believe this matter should be resolved now?
Well, first of all, I think that FIFA and its bodies should be independently allowed to take their decisions. There are avenues for recourse should one of the parties feel that they need to seek recourse on this case. The Court of Arbitration in Sports, CAS, continues to be, I think, one of the primary avenues where such issues should be resolved, but that should be done independently without political interference.
That was Glenn McAuliffe, the European Union's Commissioner for Sport. Let's turn our attention to Iran now. And millions of people have gathered in Tehran for the funeral of former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Streets and airspace in the capital have been shut down for the days-long memorial, which began on Friday and will end on Thursday when Khamenei is buried at the Imam Reza Shrine in Mashhad, his birthplace. And despite the recent agreement with the US, today a member of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said the war would not be over until Khamenei's death had been avenged. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn has been following today's events from Tehran and picked up a similar appetite for revenge.
They came out in their millions for hours. The Supreme Leader's funeral cortege swarmed on the streets of Tehran by huge crowds. From the air, the funeral procession stretching through the capital for mile after mile. On the ground, among the enormous crowds, there was intense grief, but also anger. The familiar cry from Iranians, "Death to America." from people who now want revenge for their fallen leader. What is your message to President Trump today?
We kill you. We totally, all of us, want to kill you.
You yellow dog, Iran is your opponent, and we will take revenge for the blood of our supreme leader.
There was also a sense of relief and pride. Iranians have made it through this war.
Proud of my people, my country, and proud to be here, to say it out loud to every people in the world, to see us standing here for our leader and for everything else.
Iran is used to huge funerals, but this was on a scale and intensity we haven't seen here for decades.
Iran's leaders hope that this sends a resounding message to their enemies that America and Israel's war was futile, and that by assassinating Ali Khamenei, they have only strengthened his government, not toppled it, by galvanizing this kind of public support and sympathy.
The Iranians may now be negotiating with America over how to end the war for good. But there was little patience for any idea of compromise among the faithful here.
I have a deep sorrow, but I'm here to tell the world that we are not afraid of America. We are not afraid of Trump. Look at the red flags. Look at the red flags. The colors, the blood. We are here to say that we want revenge for our martyred supreme leader.
It was not only killing a political leader, but a very high religious and spiritual authority. No, the war is not over.
This woman spoke for many we've met. Donald Trump, she says, knows he's been beaten.
My message is that you picked a fight with Iran, and that's the biggest mistake of your life. Iranians never lose, and I would like to tell you that you should stop here before it causes more embarrassment for you.
There are those who did not take part today in this deeply divided country. Some who protested on these streets against the government and had been killed for it before the war. But this was a massive show of support for the government from millions of Iranians that seems only to have grown because of the war and the assassination that started it.
And Dom joins us live from Tehran. Dom, on paper, and as far as this MOU that Donald Trump put together, it feels like the war should be over, but the sense I get just watching your piece there is it's far from the reality on the ground.
Yeah, very much so, Yalda. I mean, certainly the mood on the ground is one of sadness. People are deeply moved, but also a real thirst for vengeance. And I think that is going to inform politics here and geopolitics in the region. Looking ahead for what this means for Iran, I think what we're seeing today is an Iranian government that's resurgent to some extent, that is and has been successful at rebuilding its power base to some extent and rebuilding its popular support. Let's remember that at the start of this year, it was so unpopular, tens of thousands of Iranians took to the streets of multiple cities across this country, protesting against the government, and thousands of them were killed in the brutal crackdown that followed. And yet today, we have seen millions of Iranians on the streets turning out to honour the leader of that government. And being amongst them, there's no sense of this being a rent-a-crowd, as if that was possible on the kind of numbers and scale that we've seen today. There's no doubting really the fervour, both religious and political, of the people we met. A real sense of kind of incandescent rage of what happened 4 months ago when Israel decided it would simply assassinate the leader of a sovereign state and then begin a war along with America that is illegal under most interpretations of international law. And also a sense of pride that we heard from that woman there, that young woman, and that we've heard that from Iranians, even those who don't support the government, even those outside the country, that this country has stood up to a superpower and a regional hegemon and has prevailed. And many people here believe that they have been victorious. That doesn't mean to say the opposition has melted away. It hasn't been hard for us to find people, particularly young people, who off camera, they won't go on camera to say this for fear of reprisals, but off camera, they won't really hide their contempt for Khamenei. They say some of them have said he was a bad leader, and many of them have said they simply aren't going to come or would not be going to the funeral. I think the frustration for them, of course, is that Ali Khamenei was an ill, sick man, and the chances of success were probably of change were likely to be more successful were he to have died naturally. And the fact that he's been martyred by Israel and America has left behind a leadership that is undoubtedly more hardline, that is less willing to compromise, arguably, and is likely to be richer through the MOU and any deal that follows, because the talk is of billions of dollars coming their way. And the fear, I think, amongst their opponents is that will be used to strengthen that apparatus of internal repression and surveillance in this country, and it will make change much less likely. So I think you have to conclude, really, from what we've seen here today, that, and agree with some of the sentiments in that piece from the people we met here, that the decision to assassinate him and begin this war has been a massive miscalculation. And I think what we've seen today is a kind of spectacular illustration of that conclusion.
Dom, is there also a sense that this is a nation that is unlikely to go back to sort of pre-February 28, when this war started, period, that status quo, it no longer exists, and this is perhaps now this nation that feels more emboldened is going to take a sort of a more aggressive approach when it comes to where it stands with the United States going forward?
Yeah, I think that depends on who you talk to. If you talk to the fervent, faithful, the supporters of the government that we've been speaking to today, they certainly want vengeance. They want to have revenge. They are furious at what happened, and they want to see their government do a lot to avenge the death of their supreme leader. And the hardliners in the government are certainly likely to push for that kind of sentiment to be translated into policy. If you talk to senior diplomats, though, as we did in the third and fourth week of this war, they're more pragmatic and moderate, and they will say that everything has changed. The whole sort of chessboard has been tipped over. There is an opportunity, they say, of a grand bargain, of all the nations in the region recognising each other to some extent, and a new kind of beginning. The frustration for them is that they don't feel there is the kind of diplomatic nous on the other side amongst the Americans to make that kind of thing happen. And they do believe that Israel is likely to try and wreck and sabotage any chance of progress in that direction. So I think undoubtedly there are conflicts and ambiguities and ambivalence in the Iranian leadership here. It's hard to read who is entirely in charge. But if you look at it in sort of human terms, you have a leadership led by a man whose father was killed in this attack, whose other family members have been killed, who is apparently left disfigured and badly injured. You have to wonder what kind of mood he would be in to compromise with the country's enemies. And there are hardliners in his government who certainly have become more powerful and are likely to become, I think, more rich in terms of resources as an outcome of these negotiations. So I think, yes, things have changed, obviously, fundamentally since February the 28th, but probably in ways that certainly those people in this country who are yearning for change are unlikely to see their dreams fulfilled anytime soon.
Dom, from Tehran, thank you so much. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come, why Christians in China turning to underground churches to practice their faith.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional. This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Sky News has visited the sites and the families worst affected by what appears to be a crackdown on Christianity taking place in China. Freedom of religious belief is enshrined in China's constitution. Of China's tens of millions of Christians, many worship in churches that are part of the Three Self-Patriotic movement. These are state-sanctioned legal Protestant churches overseen by the Communist Party. But many Christians choose to worship in so-called house churches, which reject state oversight. For their own protection, these churches often worship in secret and increasingly online. Since last year, these churches have seen a rise in arrests and raids. The Zion Church, one of the largest unregistered churches in China, saw 18 members arrested. Its founder, Pastor Ezra Jin, has now been released. Helen Ann Smith's report begins with the wife of another Zion Church pastor who remains in detention. Cherry Gung fled China following her husband's arrest.
We can't say exactly where this is. We can say that to China, this scene is subversive and this woman is on the run. What you're looking at is a rare thing to be able to film. An underground religion, a persecuted church pushing on. Cherry is a member of Zion Church, a Chinese Protestant movement, unsanctioned and unaccepted. This is what Sunday service now looks like, and she knows they're being watched.
They were talking like, be faithful to Chairman Mao, faithful to CCP and to the country.
But your belief is that these are being posted by people who are trying to intimidate you, not just harmless members of the public?
Yeah.
But anguish lurks just below the surface. Grief for the home that they fled, the people they were forced to leave.
That's in Beijing, a cafeteria.
It's like Beijing. Her husband, Gao Yingjia, is a pastor in the Zion Church. He was arrested in October and is charged with fraud. She sought safety abroad.
As a Christian in China, we knew there would be a risk, but you can never say that you are fully prepared for this. My son told me, Mom, I really miss Beijing. I miss my home. It's the same for me. I just really want to go home, go back to the normal life. But I knew at the moment we couldn't go back.
The arrests of Zion Church leaders were coordinated and countrywide, seemingly part of a much wider crackdown. The targets were underground churches, those that want independence from the state and its rules, a desire that is not allowed here. If you want to understand what all of this means for China and its Christians, then the city of Wenzhou is a good place to start. This area is known as the Jerusalem of China. But worship here is only allowed in churches affiliated and overseen by the state. Its presence and its rules are pervasive. Suli Chan has worked in this church for nearly 25 years. It's a community that follows the rules, but that knows it needs to be careful.
As long as you don't openly oppose them, there aren't any issues. They often come and sit at the back to listen to the sermons. Officials from the town government do this frequently. They're quite good to us.
This is the party secretary, he tells me. We've been inside for less than 10 minutes. We have no idea how they knew we were here. The authorities are calling him, and it's time that we left. We visited multiple sites in this area, asked about multiple churches.
Was it very big when it was there?
There was universal unease,
Before were there more?
an understanding that this subject is sensitive.
No. The overriding impression you get from being here and speaking to people in these communities is just this deep sense of nervousness, the feeling that just one step out of line could have really dire consequences. But what feels certain is that the space here to operate and worship in a way that is meaningfully independent from the Chinese Communist Party feels to have dramatically narrowed, perhaps gone altogether. So ever present is the state paranoia about any group it does not control.
And there is a cost to defying the diktats. The town of Yayang knows. This was it in December. The church here rejected a national flag on its premises. Shortly after, its cross was forcibly removed. It takes us a moment to find it, but this is it today. The site where the church once stood, now flattened.
The site where this church was taken down is literally just up here. There's lots of police. We're pretty aware we're already being watched and followed as well.
Extreme measures were taken to stop locals filming what happened here. We were no exception.
Yeah, they're coming up to us now.
Authorities did not respond when we asked why they demolished the church. The response here says plenty.
Drive.
Cherry's husband is still being held in this detention centre. The ordeal for many here continues. China says cases will be handled in accordance with the law and insists that religion here is free. And while some are happy, and the might of this state that feels it must be almighty. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News in southern China.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, growing concerns for the health of a Gazan doctor who's been held in an Israeli prison for 18 months without charge.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now? The son of a Palestinian doctor detained without charge by the Israeli authorities has spoken to Sky News about his feelings of helplessness as fears grow that his father might die in prison. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia was arrested at work in December 2024 and transferred to solitary confinement in a high-security facility. Here's our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons.
Dr. Hussam Abu Safia became a familiar figure in the first year of the war in Gaza. The director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital, he was hailed by many for saving lives, for keeping going while war raged, and for speaking out, including on Sky News.
I am Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. I am speaking from operation room from Kamal Adwan Hospitals. I speaking with, and we are suffering.
هذا هو حالنا يوم صعب يوم دموي يوم قاسي على مستشفى كمال عدوان.
He continued operating while his hospital was under siege for 85 days, here treating a group of wounded children. His work going on even after his own son had been killed by an Israeli airstrike. But Israel accused Abu Safia of assisting Hamas fighters. He was arrested 18 months ago and has been in prison ever since without ever being charged with a crime. This is the most recent image we have of him, appearing remotely at a court hearing last month. His lawyer claims Abu Safia has been tortured and is now close to death. His family are reeling. How worried are you that your father could die in jail?
When he told the lawyer this may be the last time you see me, and this may be the end, they brought me here to kill me, it felt as though those words weren't meant only for the lawyer, but for us and for the whole world.
إنما هذه الرسالة موجهة لنا ولكل العالم والله يعني شعور العجز وشعور
The helplessness, the oppression, the heartbreak, watching my father, the dearest person to me, a doctor who dedicated his life to saving children, now being killed before my eyes while I can do nothing to help him.
In Israel, a human rights group is pursuing the government in court, demanding an explanation for why Abu Safia and 13 other doctors are still being held.
In front of the Israeli court itself, in front of the Israeli legal system, that's a fact. He's not facing charges. Why he's being held without charges? We believe that now, after a year and a half, the Israeli authorities are afraid of the voice of Dr. Hussam. They're afraid of the stories, of the horrifics that he will describe about what he faced during this period.
In Gaza, the questions remain. The Israeli military told us that Abu Safia had first been arrested due to alleged involvement in terrorist activities. It has not provided any evidence to support that claim. The Israeli prison service did not respond to our requests. It has previously said the claims of mistreatment are false. Gaza is still haunted. So many deaths, so much destruction, and so many unresolved stories of people like Hussam Abu Safia. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's speak now to Dr. Derek Summerfield, a member of the British Medical Association and psychiatrist with over 30 years research and experience of war and torture victims. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. You've campaigned quite publicly for Dr. Hussam. When you hear his lawyer's account and what his son was saying there about feeling helpless, what's your reaction? Dr. Derek Summerfield, can you hear me? Looks like we've lost Dr. Summerfield, but we will come back to him as soon as we can get him back. Let's go back to our top story for now and the growing controversy sparked by President Trump for his intervention in the freezing of a red card for one of the US football team's star players. Let's just play you a clip from Senator Ted Cruz thanking Donald Trump. Let's just have a listen.
On behalf of all Americans, thank you for getting rid of that ridiculous red card. This is his. That was interesting. It was spectacular. There was a reason the FIFA trophy sat here for as long as it did.
That was Ted Cruz there responding to this controversy that we've been hearing about today, where Donald Trump confirmed that he asked FIFA to review its star striker Falarin Balogun's one-match suspension at the World Cup, and that we've been getting a range of reaction and backlash to this. Let's just hear from the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, now.
It was a bad decision. They shouldn't even be reviewing these things on slow motion, right? It should be reviewed in live action. I think it was the right decision to reverse it. And if you're Belgium, why would you want to play a game and win a match, and then you win this match, and then everyone will argue you didn't really win it because their best player, leading scorer, was not on the pitch during the match. So it's kind of unusual because generally speaking, I mean, if you're playing, you want the other side to be at its best.
As Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, speaking there. Well, earlier we got reaction from Gary Neville, former England defender, and now a respected pundit for Sky News. Have a listen.
It's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's ridiculous. But am I surprised with the sort of people involved? No, I'm not surprised. I don't think any of us should be. And sporting integrity now in this competition has, to be fair, been put into question once again. And, you know, FIFA, I mean, what are they doing? What are they doing?
That was Gary Neville speaking there. Now, the Dalai Lama turns 91 years old today, and although Tibetans are grateful for his long life, there's growing anxiety about a future without him. That's because his death could spark a greater struggle for autonomy between China and Tibet. Sky's Neville Lazarus travelled to the Dalai Lama's home in McLeod Ganj in northern India. Let's have a listen.
There are few in the modern world whose life sustains a people's identity, anchors its culture, tradition and politics, shapes a geopolitical fault line that troubles a superpower. His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, is all of this, not by ambition, but by faith, history and circumstances. As they gather to celebrate his life, even the most devoted acknowledge his impermanence. It's the reincarnation of the next Dalai Lama, which is at the forefront of confrontation. Often derided as a separatist, China says a rebirth must comply with its laws and regulations and would need approval by the Chinese government. A demand rejected by the head of the Tibetan government in exile in India.
No, it's completely absurd. A government that does not believe in any religion, that does not believe in Buddhism, how can they be responsible for the final approval? This was never the case in the case of Tibet. In Tibet, traditionally, it was never followed. So what we have been doing here, of course, China will plan. They have been planning for the last more than 25 years, waiting for this Dalai Lama to die, and hope that once this Dalai Lama dies, then the Tibetan issue will have a natural death.
It will be momentous, consequences that will define the future of a community for generations. Being pragmatic and realistic, the Dalai Lama sought the middle way, a path seeking genuine autonomy within China, abandoning the long-standing demand of complete independence.
Why do I not have the memory of Tibet?
But many disagreed, particularly the youth, as the compromise has yielded little, frustrating them.
Our problem is not with His Holiness and the Tibetan people. Our problem is with China and India and all the other countries who side with China, who are trying to erase the very name of Tibet. It is not with the happiest, mind that His Holiness is seeking autonomy. Who would want to be a part of someone else's country? Who? No one. We want independence. Independence is deservingly our right.
A prayer for 52-year-old Lobga, who self-immolated in front of the United Nations headquarters in New York. A community plunged into sadness once again for the sake of freedom. The Dalai Lama has safeguarded his people's identity for a lifetime. Now, the collective generations must rise to sustain it beyond him. Neville Lazarus, Sky News in Meklotganj, Dharamshala.
Let's go back to Dr. Derek Summerfield, a member of the British Medical Association and psychiatrist with over 30 years research and experience of war and torture victims. Thank you so much, Dr. Summerfield, for joining us again. It's good to have you with us. We were watching a piece there on Dr. Hussam and hearing from his lawyer as well as his son. I just want to get your reaction to that because, of course, we know that you've been publicly campaigning for the release of Dr. Hussam.
Yes. Well, the backdrop to his continued detention is the sense that of Israel's impunity about all health professionals anywhere. 1,700 health professionals have been killed in Gaza on duty since 23. A number of them in prison, and particularly Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, who was the head of orthopedics at one of the big hospitals there. So I think they wanted to make an example of him. Maybe, as someone suggested in the report, to release him would mean that he can describe everything that's happened to him. But there's nothing special about what's happened to him. He clearly has been under torture and starvation. Apparently he's at half his weight. He's in a tiny cell. You know, they probably would rather that he died than he be released. And after all, there are 9,000 Palestinians who have not faced trial sitting in prisons. Many of them are doctors. Many of them, we hear that a whole lot of other doctors are being held as well. But I suppose that Dr. Abu Safia has come to represent the plight of the health service in Gaza when they are faced by a state that doesn't just kill doctors and nurses and assistants by accident, but aims for them by way of destroying the society and the schools and the universities. That's why Gaza is a heap of ruins. And because he has, he's had that status, and because he is still a survivor, Israel would rather let him, wither away in prison than release him, it would seem. Despite many pleas, and the British Medical Association have called out for his release or whatever, but, Israel has impunity. Impunity is the key to understanding these things.
Do you think enough is being done by the global medical community? And I'll also quote Hamish Faulkner, the Minister for the Middle East and North Africa, who said, "We've raised his case again today with the Israeli authorities. Britain's commitment to the rule of law and fair trial is resolute." Of course, the Israeli military has responded and said that accused Dr. Hussam of being arrested due to alleged involvement in terrorist activities, but they haven't provided any evidence of that.
Look, no, they haven't. They say that about everything. Every time they bomb a hospital, they say, we think there was a Hamas command post in the basement. Look, this is a grotesque policy. He is one of the victims. What we're seeing here, these are Geneva Convention violations, attacking hospitals, doctors, ambulances, and the like.
I'm so sorry.
And that's what we face here.
Yeah, because we lost you earlier, we've actually run completely out of time on the programme. But we're grateful for your time and for joining us.
I'm happy that you're covering this story.
Thank you so much. And that's it from me and the team. Goodbye.